Three.
They don't listen.
I'd like to just call the meeting of the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee to order. The date is the 10th of February, 2026. The time is 4:08. With us today, we have Alderwoman Smith, Alderman Bugg, Alderman Nunez, Alderman Seville, and myself, Alderman Franco. First item on the agenda is 26-0062, approval of the minutes from the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee meeting held on January 27, 2026. Motion by Alderman Seville, second by Alderman Bugg. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Clerk, is there anybody from the public wishing to speak?
No one has signed up.
Okay, then we'll get into the meat of the agenda. First item is 25-1007, a resolution authorizing Director of Purchasing or her designee to pay invoice number S0035939 to Wabansie Community College in the amount of $22,058.29 for emergency medical technician paramedic education. And do we have anybody presenting on that?
Good afternoon, Phil Bergeron, Division Chief of Training at the Aurora Fire Department. This was oversight on my part. I didn't realize that we had exceeded that $50,000 threshold. This is for tuition that we had already sent our students to. There was 17 throughout the year. So we have a paramedic program. EMTB paramedic is a one-year program, and then we've got three. We've got a spring, fall, and summer EMTB class we have to pay for. So that's the remaining balance owed to Wabansie Community College.
So question is, so we were planning on sending 15, but we ended up sending 17. Is that why we went over?
No, the plan the whole time was to send the 17.
Okay.
Again, like I said, it was an oversight. I didn't realize that since the billing cycle comes, it was 33,000, so that didn't meet the 50,000 threshold, and then it was 17,000, and then it was 22,000. So nothing set off any kind of bell or whistle until Dan Ferguson caught it and brought to our attention.
Did, when we budgeted for this, did we anticipate it was going to go over, or is it just a little miscalculation on the math or something like? Because it's you know, it's like a 40% overage. So I was just kind of wondering.
No, it was budgeted. Again, it was just an oversight on my part about the 50,000
Okay.
that it had to be brought to council.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Seville, second by Alderman Bugg. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 25-1034, resolution authorizing the city to approve a resolution authorizing the city to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the DuPage County Department of Community Services to formalize a partnership for ensuring a central access point for providing basic health and human services for Aurora residents living in DuPage County.
Good afternoon, members of council. Chris Ragona, Director of Community Services. So back in November 2025, DuPage County Department of Community Services reached out to the city, as well as all surrounding communities that had any type of land within their DuPage County boundaries to request that they enter into a memorandum of understanding to ensure a central access point to provide basic health and services for the community. DuPage County has an active third-party 211 system, which is somewhat similar to what we have in our 311 system. This system is going to be third-party, but operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, addressing many of the same things that we look at when we get calls within our 311 system. So health and human services, as well as additional services. This MOU would allow DuPage County and the City of Aurora to share resources and referrals and stay up to date on changing providers and programs. So this wouldn't result in any cost or any additional staffing at the city level. Both parties can renew annually unless either side decides to terminate. So this is just their way of trying to share additional resources with all of the different municipalities within DuPage County, and Aurora is partially in that. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We also have Ricky Benjamin, our customer relations manager, here.
I have a question.
Question, Alderman
Yes,
Smith.
my entire ward is in DuPage County. So give me an example, if we have someone here for the city of Aurora that dials 311, how will the 211? How will this overlap? Tell me how this is going to work. What will it look like? Because what you said is just kind of words. It doesn't say what it's actually going to look like. If, at what point in time does one step in for the other, or vice versa?
So I think it's more of the sharing of resources. So, for example, DuPage County operates LIHEAP. The city of Aurora does not operate that. We would be providing resources back and forth that's available to the community. As far as how the 311 versus 211 works, I might ask Ricky if she potentially has an answer to that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ricky Benjamin, Customer Relations Manager. So it has been an ongoing partnership, and this year when the documents came out, it was brought to the communities as an MOU. So it went through the legal department to continue the joint efforts. As residents are calling 311, we have our knowledge-based articles in our software that are prepped with all of the resources that we are informed of within the community, within the city, and or within other partners throughout the community. So any non-city services that 311 can't assist with, we are then referring the residents in the community to contact 211, along with providing them with additional resources that we have on hand. So things like emergency housing, utility assistance, maybe down payment assistance, things that the city of Aurora may not have on hand at that time or be able to provide. So it's just an additional resource as they're reaching out to 311, thinking we're going to have all the information to assist them. We're partnering with 211, DuPage County, and also Kane, Will, and Kendall to let them know you can contact 211 for the services that the city of Aurora can't provide you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Alderman Bug.
thank you. So let's talk about the coverage and the real day-to-day. So I live, I don't, but say I do live in DuPage County, and I pick up my phone and dial 211. What happens?
So 211 has two separate call centers, one specifically for DuPage County, and then a second that covers Kane, Kendall, and Will. So it works just like 911, just like 311. It's bouncing off the cell towers in that area. So DuPage County is going to go directly to the DuPage County call center for 211, which is through Fox Valley United Way as a third party.
Okay. Are both through Fox Valley?
Yes.
Okay.
211 is through United Way.
So the whole city, all 4 counties, but there's just 2 separate call centers?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, so since we're here, we're going to talk about it. Coverage. Okay. How is the coverage going with 211? And how is the coverage continuing to improve for 311?
When you say coverage, do you mean like staffing or the calls coming out
Calls coming
into the
in
311?
and out, and like my home does not go to 311 yet.
So
Yeah.
it's an ongoing process with AT&T. Every time the issue comes up, I know we've discussed this. It has, then I have to take it to AT&T and say, there's been this issue. First, I'll go out in the community and test it myself for multiple devices, AT&T, Verizon, to see what the error message is, if there's one that's given amongst calling. And then I take it back to AT&T and let them know that the boundaries are off. So I don't know the technical terms for it, but I know 911 is a much higher standard as what's required within the community, where 311 doesn't meet those requirements. So some of it is trial and error, where it's the outskirts. You'll find it's far south sides of the community, or on the outskirts where city limits meet township, where some of those calls come in. It also varies based off if they're calling from their house phone or a cell phone, based on that error occurring. So I've had residents call from a house phone and get that error, where I've called from a cell phone from outside, the residence, and don't get that error. So it's just trial and error, working through myself and AT&T to work through that.
Okay.
211, I'm not sure how their coverage works. That is something I could check with them, though, to see if they
Okay.
have ongoing issues. But I would imagine their process, 211's been around for a long time. So I would imagine by now they probably have worked through those issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion by Alderwoman Smith, second by Alderman Bog. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, now we're going to go to 26-0065, and Chris, if you want to come back up here, I think this is going to be under yours now, I believe. And then we have questions about how this is going to be presented. Before we get started, so just so there's no confusion, I had been asked to recuse myself because of one of the items in here, personal conflict with Marie Wilkinson Food Pantry. There's been some discussion up here, though, that thinks that we don't have to do these all together. So I just wanted to talk about that real quick. I don't mind recusing myself, but I just want to make sure it's necessary for all 4 items. So Alderman Bug had a question. Chris, if you could come up here again and we could talk about this. I'll recuse myself, but I would like Alderman Bug to tell, make the comment that you told me, Alderman Bug, because I think that makes sense. I just want to make sure we get this straight.
Thank you, Chairman. I overheard the conversation, and of course, we've done quality of life every year. I mean, this isn't something new. We always have done it separately in the past because a number of aldermen would need to recuse themselves. In fact, this committee would not be able to act today, so many people had to recuse themselves. So Alderman Franco was sharing that all 4 items had to be done together because they're going to be presented together. I said, well, you can present the first 3 on however you want and then present quality of life completely separate. Still, because I understand all 3, the 3 entities getting money are together, that doesn't change the fact that all 3 of us would need to recuse ourselves. And we need to handle that separately when we come to that one item. But as far as listening to the 4 items, or excuse me, the first 3 items, if they were presented separately, I don't see why we cannot proceed in that way as we proceeded in that way for decades.
Good afternoon, Chris Regona, Director of Community Services. So we ran this scenario by our legal department, and this is the path that they suggested. Because of the way that we made our recommendations, many folks applied for a particular type of grant. As we assessed and reviewed and started slotting in recommendations, some of those applications were moved to different sources of funds. So really all of these applications and different opportunities sort of intertwine when we come up with our final recommendations. The only one that didn't move was item 26-0066. We didn't move anything out or anything into that opportunity, so those funds were considered separate. However, when we presented this application, everything was due at the same time, and we reviewed everything together. All of the money was still separated because there's different eligible activities and different uses. But it really was one opportunity spread across really multiple opportunities, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So this is what we presented, and they suggested we go this route. It sounds like we discovered a new conflict of interest. When we review the application, we do look at board rosters. The board roster that they gave us did not include Alderman Nunez, so that was new information that we received today. And then you mentioned that you would have to recuse yourself?
Yes.
Okay, so in our review, we didn't discover that conflict of interest either.
I sat on a board that has received quality of life for the past 6 years, and I've recused myself every time.
Okay. So that's the recommendation that we were given. I understand what you're saying about us presenting and then voting separately, but I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of our legal department. That's the guidance that they
Alderman
provided.
So I'll turn it back to the chairman, but it sounds like
So-
legal needs to reweigh it.
So here's the conundrum. Recuse, we don't have a quorum.
No, we don't. That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, so we only have 2. So that's, I don't know that, and I understand maybe for efficiency or the way it's better to do it that way, but the collateral problems that it presents, and this is just at this level, I don't even know where we're going to be at COW. So I want to make sure that we do this so we at least have people to vote on each item. So I think that's where we're looking at today. it's not gonna be a problem for me going forward, because I'm gonna handle this and make sure by next Tuesday and in the next Tuesday after, I will be able to. But we're still gonna have problems going forward, because I don't know how many other people might be partaking in these boards. So I think that's kind of the problem here too. So I would ask, Patrick, you wanna chime in on this? Because, again, I don't care if I'm recused, but if it's going to be a problem, systematic problem, then we have to address that, because we gotta have people to vote.
Sure, it's my understanding that based on the recusal of 3 of the aldermen here, we would not have quorum to proceed on this item. I would recommend that all of these items go to new business at Cal, with not being heard here.
Well, I disagree with that. I disagree with that in the fact that we've not done it this way before. And I think that we need to hold this item right here and send it back to you guys to discuss this when we have gone through. I was on this committee years when I first started here, and you were as well. You did recuse yourself, but it was never all done in one clump.
Well,
It was
This
kind
board
of,
didn't exist when these came through last
Yeah.
time. So this was a different set of aldermen were on this board. So now, as it's set up now, 3 aldermen would have to recuse themselves.
Right.
So you're never going to have quorum for that.
right.
Well, that's
Unless-
the problem.
Yeah.
Right, so we want to address this as quickly and as expeditiously as possible. We're gonna have to be able to do it in a systematic way, and we can't do it, we only have 2 people to vote. So I don't want to throw it in legal's lap, but how are we gonna fix that today? Is there a fix?
I
Not
don't
a
believe
discretionary fix, but an absolute fix,
I don't like
guess.
the fact that we're not going to discuss this at committee before it's sent to COW. I don't like that fact, because
Well-
I have a lot of questions.
Right, and,
Hold on,
and, and
question.
as do I. So I would suggest, how critical is this to get done at this particular meeting as opposed to 2 weeks from now?
I would say it's minor. Typically, we would start doing, setup meetings and preparing while this is working through the approval process. It would give some of our folks 2 less weeks to expend all of their dollars, since many of their agreements will expire at the end of 2026. Generally, folks are able to expend all of their money usually by Thanksgiving or so. Very rarely do we have any leftover dollars. So realistically, it would be minor to wait 2 weeks, and then we could work with our legal department to figure out what is the best path of moving forward. We could also potentially start working on our back end as we have been for the last several weeks.
So I will ask my committee colleagues then, in this particular case, the new business thing was suggested, reasonable suggestion. And I haven't been on this committee for a while, but I've heard very in-depth presentations at COW. So you're going to give, no matter what you give today, you typically give a very in-depth one anyway. So I would ask my colleagues, is that a problem we go to new business? Because we're going to get an in-depth presentation at COW in the new business, and we'll be able to ask the same questions, and still could be on the same time parameter path as we would, as if we did today. So I would ask my colleagues what they think about that.
Ladies first. My answer to that is, why do we have committees? We could send everything straight to COW and start it there and go up.
Well,
And I realize we're in a different
Right, yeah.
situation here, but I don't, is there no other choice? Do they have to recuse themselves? It's never been, we have had members of this committee on these boards in the past, you're aware of that, but never as many. So there's no way that they can sit and hear the presentation and then recuse themselves and have you guys pull them out? Why can't they be broken out? That's what I'm
It's my understanding that it was one presentation, and the reason for the recusal is that to avoid any appearance of impropriety, that the people on the boards are not here hearing the information, voting on the information that is awarding money to their boards.
So it sounds like even if this were to go to Cal, we still wouldn't be able to sit in the presentation?
No.
Or
Correct.
But, all right, so let's just go through it. If we go to Cal, I will probably be able to sit there, but let's say I couldn't. We still have, I would think, would have enough people to move it on to city council, and then at city council, are we gonna have enough people to vote? You're gonna have to have a quorum to vote. Now, if you took us 3 out of the 12, that leaves 9. Do we have anybody else? We're gonna have to have 7?
My understanding is there's 1 additional city council member that
Okay.
would need to recuse himself.
So we're gonna be okay, we're gonna have 8. Then we'll have 8, assuming nobody's
Assuming they're all
absent.
there.
Assuming they're all there. But we're gonna need 7. So
But we still can't participate in the actual, any questions that we might have, anything of that nature, the discussion itself, we can't participate in.
Well, if you really have to recuse yourself, that was just gonna be like that anyway. For process purposes, to move this along, that's the most important thing now. We can ask questions. I already gave Alderman Seville some questions for me. We can do that along the way, but we're gonna have to make sure at some point in time, it's gonna be able to be voted on technically. And technically, we're gonna have to have 8 votes in the other day. You say we're gonna be able to do it because you only found 4. I probably will be able to vote by that time too, because I'm gonna take care of, on my end. But for today, I don't really have a problem that's going to new business on that, because we're gonna vet it just like we would today. And I know what you're saying. I think this is an unusual circumstance, so I don't think it's gonna be habitual. So I would be comfortable with doing that because of what happened today. And then I would ask going forward, that when we do this next year, maybe we separate a little bit so we don't run into this conundrum again, because we'd like to be active in the community, and who knows who's gonna be in the board or this committee next year, and I don't wanna run into the same problems. So for this year, I would suggest that we do what Patrick said about put it on a new business, a COW, get the full vetting there, and then we can move it along, and then we'll have a little bit more time to figure out going forward how we're gonna make sure this doesn't happen again.
Well,
if
Chairman,
everybody's
how
comfortable.
do committee members that are sitting up here that might have a conflict with one particular area but have questions about other areas, how do they get that question asked and answered?
Well,
They
that
don't
would,
even get to have to ask their questions because they can't, can they do it offline? Is it?
well, I mean, it's.
I have a question about, I'm not getting recused, but I have a question about, I don't say Maria Wilkinson, but that's not what the board I sit on. Do I have the opportunity to get that question answered? I have no say-so in any of this whole thing if I got to recuse myself? I think this is too big of a thing for that.
Well, I guess what have we done in the past? I mean, people have recused themselves in the past, so that particular person, even though we have enough votes, would have to go offline to ask, or have somebody from the committee ask on their behalf, because it has to happen before. I think the problem we're running into now is not that
many.
problem, it's mostly actually getting enough votes to get it through, which is a little bit different. So I think you've run into that before, Alderman Bug, that you've had to recuse, and you've had questions probably asked offline, or has somebody else asked like here, so we can do
My
that.
question is, can you ask the questions offline?
Well, I could call up Chris afterwards and ask him I mean.
I'm just.
I don't think that's
wanted
a-
to make
You would
that
be able to
public.
call Chris or whoever you need
Well,
to
whoever
ask the
I want,
question
so we'll be
to,
able to get those
but
answered.
Not regarding the
Right.
item that you're being recused from.
But I think we need to use this, if we go that route, I would suggest we do. I think we need to use this as a learning example, is that maybe next year we do break it up just to make sure we don't have this particular problem. This year, we'll work through it as long as we get the votes in. But I think going forward, if we went back the way Alderman Bucket suggested we had done it before, it might make it easier on all these committees going forward. So I would suggest that. So my suggestion is we go to a new business at COW, and we'll basically deal with it at that time, but we'll certainly be able to have enough people listen to it and move it forward, and then we anticipate being able to vote on it at the city council meeting. Alderman Bugg, you have-
Yeah, one question. So from your research, the rest of our colleagues, who do you have, what ward do you believe will have to recuse themselves?
Let's see, what ward is, so it would be Ward 4, I believe.
No, 3.
Or is it 3?
Yeah.
Okay,
Masiacos?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
In Ward 1?
So I'd have to go back, not in our findings unless we missed one.
Which one are you
Okay.
thinking?
Hmm?
Which one are you thinking?
Dan?
I know, but for which organization?
He's involved in a number, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I think what's gonna happen today, we would not have enough people to basically chime in and really make a dent. So I would agree with your suggestion about bringing it to new business and being able to let the masses, the majority listen to it. And as Alderman Smith said, you can ask your questions offline, as I would too then. And then we just gotta make sure that city council meeting in 2 weeks, we have 8 people who are eligible to vote. And I think that'll serve us well. But going forward, again, I think that next year we may have to take a look at this particular conundrum we're in and figure out how to go around it.
Going forward on the vote, they would all be on unfinished business at city council, because different people would have been
Oh, there you
recused
go.
from different ones.
Right, there you go.
So you would, basically, people would float in for different votes.
Yeah, right.
That they may not have been for the cow presentation, but that's an item that they didn't need to recuse themselves.
Sure.
If the presentation is all together.
Right.
that's how.
Yeah, so we got a
Yeah.
little flexibility going forward then.
Yeah, looking at this in detail, page 2, I believe that Ward 1 would definitely have to recuse himself.
Yeah. So we do have a number. Hopefully, 4 or 5 people aren't in the same, in the same category. They have
Yeah,
recused
and
themselves in the same thing, but,
for all honesty, I apologize, I'm not as prepared for this meeting as I would normally be. With some of the events going on this evening, regular council couldn't be here. I think there's also an avenue we might be able to work out a different presentation where more people might be able to be present in the room. I just do not believe that would be an option for today.
right, okay. All right, so I would ask my colleagues again after we explain this.
Can I ask one more time?
Sure, Alderman Schmidt.
I like that better, working on a different presentation somehow, so the majority
But
of people.
again, I can't guarantee
I
it.
know
I'm
that,
not as
but
familiar with it.
I
but
just, I guess, maybe there was a miscount on this, but this isn't something we've done new, and this is an extreme amount of people that gotta recuse themselves. But with even 2 people recusing themselves out of committee, I think that should have been considered in the way this whole thing was put together. And I'm sorry, I'm not complaining, but I'm just speaking my mind here. And the way this was put together so that it's, you know, aldermen want to hear these things. What you do is really important, you know, and I enjoy hearing this every year from you. But I would be upset if I had to recuse myself because I want to hear what's going on in the other aspects of what you do. So I think if we really need to figure out a different method for next year, so this, you know, this could happen again. It could get worse. But, you know, I think that we really need to try to come up with something different because we do have a lot of very involved aldermen, and that's what makes them the aldermen, so that's just my 2
Certainly,
cents.
and so the application process has morphed quite a bit. So back in 2018, we were really looking at our community development block grant. That was a standalone application. A few years later, we incorporated quality of life into that. And then a few years later, we took on additional federal dollars through the American Rescue Plan. And then a few years after that, we received the opioid settlement through the state. So as we kept adding various layers and types of funds that we could offer, I think that's why we're now encountering multiple members of city council that are across different boards. You know, we were at 20 applications in 2018, and now we were at 86. So there's just a lot more people that are applying, so there's a lot more opportunities for people to be in the community and serve on boards or have different relationships with folks who are also applying for the city. So that could also be why. Plus, our number of dollars that we're able to give away is much higher than it used to be back when I started in 2018 through the various funds.
So I guess, long-term, going forward, Patrick, I guess this would be the legal department, is there any way we could amend our rules and regulations to lighten them up a little bit on boards, commissions, spouses on there, sons on there, daughters on there, as opposed to you being on there as an alderman, or something along those lines that would give it a little bit more flexibility about the recusal process, at least for this? I don't know if we can. I don't know how tight the law is, the state law,
I think
local.
it's something we could look into,
Yeah.
but it's very doubtful.
Right.
I-
Well, we wouldn't be doing it for this. yeah.
If the whole point is to avoid the appearance of
Sure.
impropriety, but for everything else, we're gonna worry about spouses and kids and siblings and the rest. But on these, we're not. I
Yeah,
think
it's
it's a
tough.
difficult slippery slope that it would
Right.
be.
Right. I mean, yeah, we wouldn't be doing it for this time, but even if you said, I'm announcing that my wife is on this particular board, and everybody knows it, so when I vote, you know whether I'm following allegiance or not, at least the transparency's there. And I don't know, I'm just spitballing right now, but if there's a way to loosen that up, because we could encounter this for a long time, just like for what you said, and it could be expanding more, and we don't want to get in that pickle where we can't vote on something because we're all active, or our spouses are active, or our kids are active, in the community. So,
I think there's some other avenues of things we can look at.
Sure.
I'd rather not make any suggestions here about
Right,
them, whether if they can work out or not work out. I mean, the option of it's a special city council meeting where everyone's there and nobody votes on any of these, but everyone's there for the presentation.
Right.
Then they're voted on at a different meeting. There's
yeah.
a lot of things we
Right.
could potentially do,
Sure.
but I think for here at this meeting, without having quorum, you can't even call the agenda items as they are. So,
Well-
and I've spoken with the mayor's office. They're happy to put it on new business for
Okay,
now.
so, all right, well, so we got some things we're gonna work on between now and either next week and maybe next year. So I would suggest that we move this to new business under COW to get the full presentation, and then we'll let the chips fall where they may at that time for people that got to leave the room. At least we can move it on from there to city council, and we'll make sure we have the votes at that time, to have a quorum at least. What goes one way or the other, we'll figure that out. Are my colleagues comfortable with that?
Yes.
Oh, for it.
Okay, all right, so we'll do that. So I apologize that you're ready to go today, but, you know, we just want to make sure we get this done right, or get it done at all. So we will move items 26-0065. Do I need to read these?
If I may, you wouldn't even have quorum to call these items.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the other, Alderman Bug would have to recuse himself, you would have to recuse yourself, and Nunez, so you're left without
Right.
quorum. You don't have quorum to
All right, so,
proceed the meeting.
And I can't, as vice chair, forward something without a recommendation.
Forwarding it to new business with no recommendation,
Because we
Well,
don't vote. We don't
I
have quorum.
mean-
We're doing business with no quorum, so I would say no.
that,
this is like a black hole.
yeah, I would.
And the
I
black
would-
hole automatically moves to COW?
Well, no, the mayor sets the agenda for Cow and city council, so
Okay.
he would be putting these on as new business items on the agenda
Okay.
for Cow.
So we will not address that because we can't, because we don't have a
Correct.
quorum. We'll let the chips fall where they may. We'll let the mayor's office do what they need to do. Our suggestion, though, even though we can't call them, is to agree with going on to new business, you know, if they ask. And then we'll just go from there, I guess. That's really, our hands are tied.
And I think if you wanted to address that in the PHST report, that would be fine, that these items are, we didn't have quorum because of the different aldermen that had to recuse themselves. We had a discussion about that and proceeding forward, but they will be on new business.
Yeah,
I
that's
believe
okay.
that would be appropriate.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, we'll do that then. So, with that said, we have nothing else. I don't believe we have anything else to come before the city council or the PHST to me. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion by Alderwoman Smith, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And we are adjourned at 4:40.
For doing nothing.
Well, we learned some stuff.